I still remember the silence that night. The kind that doesn't just sit in the air, it suffocates you. Our wedding night. The night every girl dreams about. The night that's supposed to feel magical, full of love, laughter, and whispered promises. But for me, it felt like a funeral. I was sitting at the edge of the bed in my white satin gown, hair still pinned from the ceremony, heart still fluttering with the leftovers of excitement. My husband, Ethan, was in the bathroom, taking forever. We'd just come back from the reception where everyone toasted to our forever. I couldn't stop smiling then. But now, in that hotel room, my smile felt forced. Something was off. When he finally came out, he didn't look at me. He didn't say a word. Just grabbed his phone, slid into bed, and turned his back to me. At first, I thought maybe he was nervous. Maybe tired. Weddings are exhausting, right? So, I leaned closer and whispered, "Ethan, we're married now." He didn't respond. Didn't even move. I laughed a little, thinking maybe he was teasing me. But when I touched his shoulder, he flinched like my hand burned him. Then he said, flatly, "I'm tired. Let's sleep." Sleep? On our wedding night? Something in me sank so deep it almost felt physical. My hands went cold. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to him breathe beside me, pretending everything was okay. But the quiet was too loud. When I heard the faint buzz of his phone, curiosity pulled me in like a hook. I told myself I wasn't going to check, that I trusted him. But my heart wouldn't listen. I reached for his phone slowly, careful not to wake him. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it, same code he'd always used. And that's when I saw it. A message from a contact saved as M. The preview alone made my stomach twist. "Can't believe you actually went through with it." Bet she looked pathetic in white. I opened the chat and within seconds, my whole world collapsed. Picture after picture. Messages full of mockery. Voice notes. Plans. Even screenshots of my bridal gown from my own Instagram, captioned by Ethan, "She really thinks she won." My breath hitched. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he'd wake up from the sound. But he didn't move. He was sleeping peacefully, while the life I'd dreamed of was being torn apart in front of my eyes. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. I scrolled up, desperate for context, for some kind of misunderstanding. But there was none. The woman M was Madison. His ex. The one he told me was crazy and obsessed. Turns out, they'd never broken up. The wedding? It was a game. A bet. A sick form of revenge because I once told him I'd never settle for a man who didn't treat me right. And he wanted to prove I could. My hands shook as I dropped the phone. Tears blurred everything, but I couldn't even cry out. I just sat there, staring at the man I thought loved me, realizing he'd humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. Then he murmured in his sleep, softly, almost tenderly, "Maddie." That was it. Something inside me snapped. I stood up quietly, still in my wedding dress, my makeup streaked, my body shaking. My mind was screaming 1,000 thoughts at once, but one rose above the rest. He's going to regret this. But I didn't act that night. I couldn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened the camera. I took pictures, every message, every photo, every detail. I was in shock, but some small voice inside me whispered, "You'll need this later." Morning came, and he acted normal. Smiled. Asked if I slept well. I almost laughed. I played along. Pretended I didn't know. Pretended I was still the naive, newly married wife he thought he fooled. Because revenge, I realized, doesn't always start with rage. Sometimes, it starts with silence. He went into the shower, humming. I sat by the window, watching the city wake up, and wondered how many people live with lies this big and smile through it. I decided right there I wouldn't be one of them. But I couldn't just walk away. Not yet. Not without understanding why. Not without letting him dig his own grave a little deeper. That night, when we returned home, I acted as though nothing happened. Cooked his favorite meal. Laughed at his stupid jokes. He didn't know I had already sent the screenshots to a private folder, one only I could access. For weeks, I watched him. Studied him. Listened carefully when he talked in his sleep. I found new numbers, new lies, new excuses for work trips. I even followed him once, just to confirm what I already knew. He wasn't meeting clients. He was meeting her. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. One night, after pretending to fall asleep beside him, I waited till his phone buzzed again. The message was short: tomorrow's the night. Let's make it count. Tomorrow. My heart was pounding. I needed to know what that meant. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I followed him. I shouldn't have. I know that now. Because what I saw that night changed everything. He didn't go to a hotel. He didn't even go to her house. He went somewhere worse. Somewhere I least expected. And when I saw who was waiting for him, I realized Ethan's betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about something much darker. Something that would drag both of us into a war I never asked for. What do you think will happen next? Drop your guesses in the comments. I followed Ethan that night, my heart racing so fast it almost drowned out the sound of his footsteps ahead of me. It was cold, the kind of chill that feels like the world itself is warning you to turn back. But I couldn't. He drove out of town, past the quiet streets, past the gas station we used to stop at for snacks during road trips. My hands were tight on the steering wheel as I kept my headlights dimmed, trailing him just far enough to stay unseen. When he finally stopped, I expected a house. Maybe a hotel. Maybe her. But it wasn't Madison waiting for him. It was my best friend. Claire. The same Claire who caught my bouquet at the wedding. The same one who hugged me that morning and said, "You're the luckiest woman alive." I froze in the car. I couldn't move. My throat went dry, my chest heavy like something sharp was pressing down on it. I watched through the windshield as she ran into his arms, laughing. They kissed like they'd been doing it forever. It wasn't just an affair. It was a performance. Everything made sense in one sick, dizzying moment: the fake smiles, the private jokes they shared, the way she always helped with wedding planning. She had been the one to pick the venue, the photographer, even the playlist. Every detail she handled had been part of their show. And me? I was the fool on stage, reading a script I didn't write. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood, trying not to cry. The betrayal was so deep it almost didn't feel real. I thought I was watching strangers. But no, that was my husband and my best friend. I grabbed my phone, recorded everything: the embrace, the way he brushed her hair, the whisper I could almost make out, "Now she's yours to ruin." My hand trembled as I hit record, zooming in. I didn't even know what I planned to do with the video. I just knew I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that everything I'd felt was real. When they finally went inside, I sat in my car for almost an hour. My tears came slow, not heavy sobs, just quiet, steady drops that soaked into my jacket. By the time I got home, I wasn't just broken. I was numb. Ethan was already there when I walked in. Somehow, he'd gotten back before me. Probably through a shortcut I didn't know about. He looked relaxed, wearing his hoodie, scrolling through his phone like nothing happened. "Hey," he said casually. "You're up late." I wanted to scream, to throw the phone at him. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Couldn't sleep." That night, as he slept, I lay awake again, this time not as a heartbroken wife, but as a woman planning something bigger than tears. Before dawn, I made copies of everything: the screenshots, the messages, the video of him and Claire. I stored them in a hidden cloud folder under a fake name. I wasn't sure what I was building yet, but I knew I was building something. The next morning, Ethan acted like the perfect husband. Made breakfast. Kissed my forehead. Told me he loved me. I stared into his eyes and saw the reflection of a stranger. I played along, just like before. Because revenge, I was learning, was a slow dish, not cold, but calculated. Over the next few weeks, I started digging. I wanted to know why. Why go through the trouble of marrying me, only to destroy me? Why bring my best friend into it? And that's when I discovered the truth. Ethan wasn't just cruel, he was greedy. My late father had left a trust fund in my name, something I couldn't access until I was married for at least 6 months. Ethan knew that. He also knew the trust wasn't just money, it included shares in my father's company. The same company he'd once applied to work for and got rejected. He married me for access. He humiliated me for fun. He betrayed me for profit. And Claire? She was in on it. She worked in my father's legal department and had full knowledge of the trust details. They planned it together. The wedding, the marriage, the lies. If this happened to you, would you forgive or would you walk away? Every part of me wanted to destroy them immediately. But something in me whispered, wait. Don't act out of rage. Act out of purpose. So I did. I pretended harder than I ever had before. Smiled at dinners. Kissed him before work. Texted him sweet messages. I even baked him cookies on weekends. I made him believe I was still blind. But behind closed doors, I was meeting with my father's old lawyer, a man who'd been like an uncle to me growing up. I told him everything. He listened quietly, then handed me a folder. Inside were copies of all legal documents related to my trust. Play your part, he said softly. Let him believe he's winning. Then end it on your terms. For months, that's exactly what I did. Until one day, Ethan slipped up. He was on a call in his study, door half open. I heard him say, once she transfers the shares, I'm done. She can have the divorce and cry her heart out. That was all I needed. The final confirmation. I walked into the room, silent, calm, holding a mug of coffee. He didn't even realize I'd hurt him. You okay? He asked. Never better, I said. He smiled, that smug, satisfied grin I'd once loved. But inside me, the storm had already begun. I waited until his next trip with Claire. That night, I logged into the shared account his lawyer didn't know I had access to. I froze the funds he'd been secretly moving. Then I contacted the company board, using the evidence I'd gathered to expose both him and Claire's involvement in insider fraud. When they returned 2 days later, he found our house empty. My things were gone. His bank accounts were locked. His company email was terminated. And on the dining table, I left one single photo, the one of him kissing Claire. Written on the back in lipstick. Checkmate. But that wasn't the end. Not yet. Because revenge was just getting started. Ethan's scream echoed through the house that night. I wasn't there to see it, but I imagined it, the way he'd grab his hair, curse under his breath, and throw things like a child who just realized his toy was gone for good. By morning, my phone was flooded with calls and texts. His messages started polite, almost pleading. Babe, we can talk about this. It's not what you think. I love you. Please come home. Then they turned cold. You'll regret this. You think you can play with me? You're nothing without me. Each one made me smile a little more. I was staying with Aunt Marie in Denver. She lived hours away, far from the city where Ethan's reputation had started to crumble. When I first showed up at her door, she didn't ask many questions. She just hugged me and said, "You finally woke up." It took everything in me not to break down right there. Over the next few weeks, I focused on getting my life back. I started volunteering at a local legal clinic, using the degree I'd once shelved for married life. It felt good to do something that wasn't about him. To finally use my time for something that mattered. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Ethan wasn't the type to walk away quietly. Sure enough, 3 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer uncle. He's trying to appeal the trust freeze, he said. He's arguing that you misled him financially during the marriage. I laughed. That's funny coming from a man who married me for money. But my lawyer's tone was serious. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things, sweetheart. Be careful. That warning came too late. 2 nights later, my car alarm went off outside Aunt Marie's house. When I ran out, I found a dead bouquet of roses on the hood, the same kind I carried on my wedding day, with a note tied to it. You'll never win. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I wanted to believe he was bluffing, trying to scare me. But deep down, I knew Ethan wasn't bluffing. He was spiraling. A week later, his company went under investigation. His accounts were frozen. The media started asking questions about fraudulent contracts and insider leaks. Everything I'd reported was surfacing faster than I expected. And for the first time, he was the one being humiliated publicly. But Ethan didn't take humiliation well. He started showing up near the clinic, waiting in his car across the street. I caught his reflection in a window once, just staring. Not approaching. just watching. When I told Aunt Marie, she panicked. "You should report this," she said. I did. But the officer just shrugged and said, "As long as he doesn't make a direct threat, there's not much we can do." That night, I double-locked every door. Still, I barely slept. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every shadow felt like him. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. Then came the night everything turned again. I came home late from the clinic, exhausted. The house was dark, quiet. Aunt Marie was out of town for a church event. As I walked in, I noticed the faint smell of his cologne. The one I used to love. My heart dropped. I called out softly, "Aunt Marie." No answer. That's when I saw it on the coffee table, my wedding ring. The one I'd thrown away weeks ago. Sitting perfectly in the center, like someone had placed it there intentionally. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. "Miss me?" It was Ethan. My throat went dry. "How did you?" He chuckled. "You really thought you could ruin me and just disappear? You owe me everything, Ava. Everything." I tried to hang up, but he said one more thing that made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't have trusted Claire either." The line went dead. That night, I called the police again. This time they took it seriously. They searched the house, but found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no prints. Just the ring and that lingering smell of cologne. But what he said about Claire, it stuck in my head like a splinter. I hadn't heard from her since the day the scandal broke. She'd lost her job, her reputation. I thought she'd vanished. Until 2 days later, I got an email from her. The subject line read, "You have no idea what's coming." The message was just one line long. He wasn't working alone. I stared at the screen, trying to process what that meant. Was there someone else involved? Someone even higher up? I hit reply, but the email bounced back. The account was gone. Deleted. That was the moment I realized Ethan wasn't just a bitter ex-husband. He was part of something much bigger and darker than a broken marriage. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. 2 days later, a manila envelope arrived at the clinic addressed to me. No return name, no sender. Just my name scrawled in black ink. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Me leaving the house. Me at the grocery store. Me sitting in the clinic lobby. All taken from a distance. The last photo stopped my breath completely. It was me sleeping. In Aunt Marie's house. That meant someone had been inside. And underneath that photo, there was another note. One that wasn't typed, but handwritten in Ethan's handwriting. "If I can't have you, no one will." I dropped the photos on the floor, hands trembling so bad I could barely breathe. My vision blurred as panic took over. I called the police again, but before they arrived, something even worse happened. The front window shattered with a crash. I ducked behind the couch as glass scattered across the living room floor. My ears rang, my heart pounding like a drum. Through the broken window, a shadow stood under the streetlight, watching me. It wasn't Ethan. It was someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. And in that second, I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a trap. A game I'd accidentally walked into. The sound of that glass shattering still echoes in my head when I think about that night. The moment I saw that shadow under the streetlight, something primal in me kicked in survival. I crawled backward, my knees scraping the wooden floor as I reached for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hit the emergency number. 911, what's your emergency? My voice cracked. Someone just broke my window, they're outside. I'm alone. Please, please hurry. Ma'am, stay on the line. Do not approach the window. Officers are on the way. But before she could finish, I heard footsteps crunching over the glass. Slow, heavy, measured. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes every heartbeat feel like a gunshot. I stayed low, gripping a kitchen knife I'd managed to grab off the counter. The phone line was still open. The dispatcher kept talking, telling me to breathe, telling me to stay calm. Then came the sound of tires screeching outside, police lights flashing through the broken window. The shadow bolted into the darkness. When the officers finally came in, I was still shaking, still clutching the knife. They searched the area but found nothing, no footprints, no vehicle nearby. Just the shattered glass and a lingering smell of smoke, like whoever it was had been smoking right before breaking in. One of the officers asked, "Do you think it was your ex-husband?" I hesitated. It looked different. Taller. Broader. And it didn't move like Ethan. He nodded slowly, jotting notes. If he's not the one, then someone's helping him. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Someone's helping him. After they left, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure faceless, watching, patient. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to hide anymore. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. The next day, I went to the police station myself. I gave them the photos, the notes, everything. The officer promised to assign a protection detail for a few days. But I knew how these things went. They'd drive by a couple of times, and that's it. I needed to protect myself differently. So I bought cameras. 6 of them. 2 outside, 4 inside. I also installed motion sensors and alarms. It felt extreme, but after what I'd been through, nothing felt too much. For a few nights, nothing happened. The cameras caught only raccoons and wind-blown branches. Slowly, I began to breathe again. Then, on the 4th night, I woke up to my phone buzzing. The security app was flashing red, movement detected in the living room. I opened the live feed. There he was. Ethan. Standing in the middle of my living room, staring directly into the camera, his face blank, cold, unblinking. I froze, staring back through the screen. His lips moved slightly, as if whispering something. Then he looked straight at the camera, smiled, and held up a single piece of paper. Even through the screen, I could read it. "You took everything from me." I screamed, calling 911 again. This time, I didn't hang up until I heard the sirens. But by the time the police arrived, he was gone again. The cameras had caught everything. Every second. The next day, I filed a restraining order. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't stop him. Ethan wasn't afraid of the law. He was obsessed, and obsession doesn't care about boundaries. That night, as I was reviewing the footage again, I noticed something else in the corner of the frame, another shadow. Not Ethan's. Someone standing by the window, half hidden. It wasn't the same person from before. This one was smaller, leaner, wearing a hoodie. That's when I remembered Claire's email. He wasn't working alone. It wasn't paranoia anymore, it was real. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone to the police. He's not the only one who wants you quiet." My hands went cold. I called the number back, but it was disconnected. By now, my lawyer was begging me to leave town. "Ava, you need to disappear for a while. Let the investigation play out. These people aren't playing games." But something inside me refused to run. I was tired of being the victim. Tired of hiding. If this happened to you, would you forgive, or would you walk away? That night, I opened a new email draft, attached every file, every photo, every video, and scheduled it to send automatically to the police and my lawyer if I didn't deactivate it by morning. Then I sat in the dark living room with the lights off, waiting. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. I almost drifted off until I heard the soft sound of the back door creaking open. I gripped the knife again, my pulse thundering. The motion sensor light flicked on, revealing not Ethan, but Claire. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. She was shaking. "Don't scream," she whispered. "I came to help you." I didn't lower the knife. "Help me? After everything you did?" Tears streamed down her face. "You don't understand. It wasn't just us. Ethan got involved with people who wanted your father's company, dangerous people. I tried to back out, but they're watching me too. They said if I talked they'd—" A sudden thud outside cut her off. We both froze. Then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the porch. Claire's eyes widened in terror. "He's here." The lights went out. The power went out so fast it swallowed the house in total darkness. One moment, Claire was standing in front of me, trembling and whispering, "He's here," and the next, everything was black. The air felt heavier. The silence louder. Then came the sound, slow, steady footsteps on the porch. I held my breath. My fingers gripped the knife so tight it cut into my skin. Claire was pressed against the wall near the window, tears streaming silently down her face. We heard the doorknob turn once. Then again. Then a pause. The door creaked open. Light from the street spilled in, revealing Ethan's outline, tall, still, and disturbingly calm. His face was hidden in shadow, but I could see the smirk. That same cruel smirk he wore when he thought he'd already won. "Funny," he said softly, his voice slicing through the silence. "You used to beg me to come home. Now you call the cops when I do." "Get out," I said, my voice shaking but firm. He stepped further in. "You think you can ruin my life and walk away, Ava? Everything I built, everything I deserved, you took it all." I wanted to scream at him that he was the one who took everything from me. My trust, my peace, my best friend. But before I could say anything, Claire whispered, "Ethan, please don't." That's when he saw her. His face twisted with pure rage. "You," he hissed. "You had one job, Claire." She flinched. "I didn't know it would go this far. You lied to me." Ethan lunged toward her, grabbing her arm. She screamed, struggling to pull away. I rushed forward, shoving him hard with all the strength I had. He stumbled, but didn't fall. Then he laughed, a sound so cold it sent chills down my spine. "You think you can stop me with a knife?" Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. He moved fast, trying to grab the knife from my hand, but Claire slammed a vase against his shoulder. It shattered, glass flying everywhere. He roared, shoving her back into the wall. "Run!" I shouted at her. But she didn't move. She was crying, frozen in fear. I swung the knife, not to hurt him, just to scare him, but he caught my wrist midair, twisting it until I dropped it. Pain shot up my arm. "You always thought you were smarter than me," he sneered. "You never were." Then, out of nowhere, headlights flashed through the window. A car had pulled into the driveway. Ethan's head turned just long enough for me to grab the heavy lamp beside the couch and swing it as hard as I could. It smashed against his back, and he stumbled forward with a grunt. I grabbed Claire's arm, dragging her toward the back door. We ran barefoot through the yard, hearts pounding, not daring to look back. We didn't stop until we reached the edge of the woods behind Aunt Marie's house. The headlights were still shining through the trees, but now we could hear sirens in the distance. Ethan's voice echoed faintly, "You can run, Ava, but I always finish what I start." The police arrived minutes later, but by then, he was gone. They searched the house and found the door forced open, the cameras smashed, wires cut clean. Whoever had helped him knew exactly what they were doing. The officers escorted us to the station for questioning. Claire sat beside me the entire ride, shaking. At the station, she finally spoke. "He's not working alone, Ava. It's not just about you anymore. They want what's left of your father's company, the patents, the shares, the land deals. Ethan made promises to some very bad people." "Who are they?" I demanded. She hesitated. "They call themselves the Meridian Group. It's not an actual company, it's a network. Politicians, businessmen, investors. Ethan borrowed from them to start his firm. When it failed, he offered your inheritance as leverage." My heart dropped. "You're saying he used my father's company to pay off criminals?" She nodded weakly. "And now they want it all." That was the night I stopped thinking this was just personal revenge. It had become something bigger, something that could destroy everything my family built. Over the next few days, I met with the FBI task force assigned to the investigation. They had already been looking into the Meridian Group for money laundering. My evidence tied Ethan directly to them. Suddenly, my nightmare became part of a federal case. But that also meant one terrifying thing. I was a witness now. A target. They placed me under temporary protection, moved me to a safe house under a different name. Claire was moved somewhere else for her own safety. For a moment, I thought I could finally breathe again. Until I got a message one night. No name, just a video file. When I opened it, my stomach turned to ice. It was footage from a security camera outside the police station. Claire was leaving after questioning. A black SUV pulled up beside her. Two men got out, forced her inside, and drove off. The timestamp was from 3 hours ago. I called the FBI contact immediately, my voice trembling. "You have to find her." They took Claire. They traced the plates. Nothing. The car wasn't registered. It was gone. Just like that. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying her terrified face, the way she said, "They want it all." And then, just before dawn, another text came in, this time with a photo. It was Claire, tied to a chair, a bruise on her cheek. The caption read, "If you want her alive, bring the documents. No police." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was a war. And I was running out of time. When I saw that picture of Claire tied to a chair, I felt my entire body go numb. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair tangled, and behind her was a concrete wall with a single hanging light. It looked like a basement, maybe a warehouse. The message was simple. If you want her alive, bring the documents. No police. I sat there staring at it, unable to breathe. I didn't even know which documents they wanted. The trust? The company records? The FBI already had copies of everything. But whoever sent that message didn't care about logic. They wanted leverage. And they knew I'd never risk a life. I took the phone and ran to my FBI contact, Agent Ramirez. He was tall, calm, and had this voice that made even chaos sound manageable. But when I showed him the message, his jaw tightened. "This changes things," he said. "If they have your friend, they're desperate. They're losing control." I leaned forward, tears blurring my vision. "Then help me get her back." He shook his head. "We can engage on their terms, Ava. If you go alone, you'll be walking into a trap. We'll trace the message and—" I cut him off. "She doesn't have time for a trace." He sighed. "You remind me of your father. Stubborn." That name, my father, it hit me like a memory I'd been avoiding. He'd built everything with integrity, and these people had twisted it into something ugly. I couldn't let them finish what they started. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. I went back to the safe house, but I couldn't rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's face. The guilt was suffocating. So, I made a decision. If the FBI wouldn't move fast enough, I'd go myself. I knew Ethan was still out there somewhere. And I knew, deep down, this was his doing. He was the connection to the Meridian Group. If I could find him, I could find her. I started digging into every contact, every message he'd ever sent me. Most were blocked or deleted. But then I remembered something. Ethan's old tablet. He used it for work, but it was synced to our home Wi-Fi. I'd kept it after the divorce papers were filed, buried in one of my boxes. When I turned it on, it asked for a passcode. I tried birthdays, names, even his stupid nickname for Claire. Nothing worked. Then I tried something random, our wedding date. It opened. My stomach twisted. Inside were old emails, encrypted messages sent to addresses I didn't recognize. But one name kept appearing again and again, Carter Logistics. It sounded like a shipping company. But when I searched it online, it wasn't listed anywhere. No records, no address. Just a few shady mentions on old business forums about private contracts. Then I saw something that made my heart drop. A GPS invoice, a tracking request linked to Carter Logistics Warehouse 19. The address was just 2 towns away. I printed the address, grabbed the fake ID the FBI gave me for cover, and drove there that night. The warehouse sat at the edge of an industrial area, half the lights flickering, the other half dead. The sign on the gate was faded, private property, no entry. I parked behind a stack of old shipping containers, heart pounding. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I couldn't. Not when Claire's life depended on me. Through a crack in the wall, I saw 2 men standing by a black SUV, same one from the abduction footage. One smoked while the other scrolled through a phone. Inside the building, faint light flickered. I slipped around the side, my phone camera recording everything. My hands trembled as I crept closer. Through a dirty window, I finally saw her. Claire. She was tied to a chair, just like the picture. Her head was down, her wrists bruised. And standing beside her was Ethan. He looked worse than before, unshaven, eyes sunken, wearing the same leather jacket from the night he broke in. But his expression wasn't angry anymore. It was hollow. "You don't understand," he was saying to one of the men. "She doesn't have the documents. They're locked under legal control. The taller man grabbed him by the collar. Then you better make her give them up, or both of you are dead. I didn't even think. I ran to the back door, using a rusted pipe to force it open. The noise made everyone inside turn at once. Ava? Ethan's voice cracked in disbelief. How did you? I didn't answer. I just ran to Claire and started untying her hands. Run, I whispered. But before we could move, the taller man pulled a gun. Ethan shouted, "Don't," and stepped in front of us. The shot went off. The sound was deafening in that metal space. I froze. For a second, no one moved. Then Ethan fell to his knees, clutching his side, blood spreading across his shirt. Claire screamed. I pulled her toward the door, but another man blocked the exit. I swung the same pipe I'd used to pry open the door and hit him square across the arm. He dropped the gun, and Claire kicked it away. We ran out into the cold night air as sirens wailed in the distance, Agent Ramirez's voice echoing from somewhere, shouting, "FBI, drop your weapons." I don't remember much after that, just flashing lights, shouting, and the metallic smell of blood in the air. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Claire was beside me, bandaged but alive. She whispered, "He saved us." I blinked. "Who?" "Ethan," she said softly. "He took the bullet for you." I couldn't process it. Ethan, the man who'd destroyed my life, had taken a bullet meant for me. Agent Ramirez walked in not long after. "You both did good," he said. "We took down the Meridian cell. They're not getting out anytime soon." I just nodded, still staring at the wall, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to hate Ethan until the end. But part of me couldn't ignore the image of him standing in front of me, whispering, "Don't." By the way, where are you watching from? Drop your city or state in the comments. I'd love to know how far these stories travel. A week later, Ramirez visited again. He told me Ethan didn't make it through surgery. In his jacket pocket, they found something, a folded piece of paper. It was a photo of us from our wedding day. On the back, written in his handwriting, were the words, "I was wrong. I just wanted to be enough." I stared at it for a long time, unsure if I felt closure or confusion. Maybe both. When I walked out of that hospital weeks later, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it just clears space for truth. But I wasn't done yet. Because the Meridian Group might have lost this battle, but the deeper I dug into their files, the more I realized they weren't finished with me. And I wasn't finished with them. For a while, after Ethan's death, I thought the worst was over. The investigation wrapped up, the news cycle moved on, and the agents told me to start rebuilding my life. But how do you rebuild when you're not even sure what's left? Claire and I moved into a small apartment in another state under new identities. She tried to make it feel like home, light curtains, candles, even a cat she rescued from a shelter. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching. Maybe it was paranoia. Or maybe it was instinct. Because a month later, I got proof. It started with a letter. No return address, no sender, just a single line inside. "You think the Meridian Group dies that easily?" My blood ran cold. I didn't tell Claire at first. She'd been through enough nightmares, panic attacks, therapy sessions that always ended in tears. But I knew I couldn't ignore it. I sent the letter to Agent Ramirez. He called me the next morning, voice tight. "We've been hearing whispers. Someone's trying to rebuild the group. Whoever sent that message knows where you are. Don't go anywhere alone." I nodded, but my heart sank. If they knew where I was, then moving again wouldn't help. I needed to finish this. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. *. 2 nights later, while Claire was out grocery shopping, I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through the FBI updates Ramirez had sent. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a video call. For a second, I froze. Then I answered. The screen flickered to life, showing a dark room. A man in a suit stepped forward, his face half hidden in shadow. He smiled like he knew me. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said smoothly, using my old married name. Or should I say, "Ms. Avery now?" My stomach twisted. "Who are you?" He ignored the question. "You caused quite a mess. Ethan was valuable to us. Loyal until he met you. My voice shook. He ruined my life. The man laughed softly. No, Miss Avery. You ruined his. Then he leaned closer. The documents your father left behind, the ones you think the FBI has, we want them. You have 72 hours to deliver. I felt my pulse in my throat. I don't have them. Oh, I think you do. Check your email. The call ended. My hands shook as I opened my inbox. There was a single new message, no subject line. Inside was a photo. It was me and Claire, leaving the supermarket that morning, smiling. And below it, don't make us visit again. My first thought was to call Ramirez, but then another message appeared. Contact the FBI, and we'll start with your friend. I dropped my phone, panic rising. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't an empty threat. When Claire came home, I didn't say a word. I just hugged her tightly. She laughed nervously. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied. Just glad you're here. That night, I barely slept. I went through every file, every folder, every email connected to my father's company. There had to be something they wanted, something I missed. Then I found it. Hidden in a backup drive labeled Estate Photos. It wasn't photos. It was a locked folder. After hours of guessing passwords, I tried one my father used for everything, Halcyon 47. It opened. Inside was a single PDF file titled Project Halo Restricted. As I opened it, I realized why they wanted it so badly. It wasn't money or property. It was research, my father's last project before he died. A clean energy patent that could make billions. It wasn't just about revenge or inheritance anymore. It was power. I sat there staring at the document, shaking. The Meridian Group wasn't just after money, they wanted control of the future. By morning, I had a plan. If this happened to you, would you forgive or would you fight? I encrypted the file, copied it onto a flash drive, and hid it in a hollowed-out book on our shelf. Then I packed a small bag and left a note for Claire. If I don't come back in 2 days, give this to Agent Ramirez. I didn't tell her where I was going. I couldn't risk it. I traced the metadata from the video call. It led to an old office building downtown, supposedly abandoned. The same name appeared again, Carter Logistics. I went at night. The building was dark except for one light on the top floor. I climbed the stairs quietly, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. At the top, I saw him, the man from the call. He was standing by a window, smoking, like he'd been expecting me. You're braver than I thought, he said. Or dumber. Where's Claire? I demanded. He smirked. Safe, for now. But that depends on you. He motioned toward a laptop on the desk. Upload the file. I don't have it with me. His smile vanished. Don't test me, Ava. Before I could answer, a red dot appeared on his chest, a laser sight. Then another on his shoulder. FBI. Drop your weapon. Ramirez's voice boomed from the stairwell. Chaos erupted. The man lunged for the laptop. I grabbed the nearest thing, a glass paperweight, and hurled it at him. It hit his arm just as Ramirez and his team burst in. Gunfire exploded. The lights flickered. I hit the ground, covering my head. When it was over, the man was gone out the window, down the fire escape. Ramirez ran to me. You okay? I nodded weakly, my heart still racing. They wanted Project Halo. He froze. You found it. I nodded again. It's safe. But they're not done, are they? He sighed. No. But now we know exactly what they're after. And we know who's next? Who? I asked. He looked at me with an expression that chilled me to the bone. You. What do you think will happen next? Drop your guesses in the comments. I stared at Ramirez, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. What do you mean me? He ran a hand through his hair, lowering his voice. Ava, Project Halo isn't just your father's legacy, it's in your name. He filed the final patent under your trust before he died. That makes you the legal owner, the key to accessing everything the Meridian Group is after. I blinked, stunned. You're saying all this time, they didn't just want the document, they wanted me? He nodded grimly. They need your authorization to unlock the full patent rights. You're not just a target, you're the final lock they have to break. The room started spinning. For months, I'd been running, hiding, fighting shadows, thinking this was all about revenge, money, or Ethan's twisted pride. But now I realized I was standing on something far more dangerous. A billion-dollar secret. Ramirez's phone buzzed. He answered, listened for a few seconds, then swore under his breath. They know we're here. We have to move now. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. Asterisk. We rushed out of the building, down the back stairwell. The street outside was dark, silent. A black SUV sped past just as we reached Ramirez's car. They're getting desperate, he muttered, starting the engine. We drove for what felt like hours, twisting through back roads until the city lights faded behind us. Finally, we stopped at a safe house near the outskirts, a small cabin surrounded by forest. Inside, I found Claire waiting. She ran to me the second I stepped in. "You're okay," she whispered, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. But something in her tone was off. Her hands were trembling, her eyes darting toward the door. "What's wrong?" I asked. Ramirez locked the door behind us. We traced the surviving Meridian contacts. 2 fled the country, but one's still here, a woman. We think she's leading what's left of them. Claire looked pale. "What's her name?" He hesitated. "Margaret Hale." Claire froze. "No, that's not possible." I frowned. "Who is she?" Claire sank into a chair. "She was Ethan's lawyer. The one who helped him file all the paperwork for your marriage, your trust, everything." Ramirez nodded. "She's more than that. Hale is one of the founding members of the Meridian Group. She orchestrated everything from Ethan's marriage to the fund transfers." It all clicked at once. Ethan hadn't just been a manipulative husband. He'd been a pawn. Hale was the real puppeteer. "She's coming for me," I whispered. Ramirez looked me straight in the eye. "And we're going to make sure she regrets it." The next few days felt like something out of a spy thriller. The FBI built a fake digital version of Project Halo, something that looked real enough to bait her but would self-destruct once accessed. I was the trap. Claire and I stayed hidden while Ramirez's team planted the fake data trail, leaking whispers online through private channels. Within 48 hours, Hale took the bait. She sent an anonymous courier, a man with a briefcase and a single message. "Midnight. Old train yard. Come alone. No police." Ramirez tried to stop me. "It's too dangerous." But I shook my head. "She wants me? Fine. Let's end it. If this happened to you, would you forgive, or would you fight?" Midnight came fast. The air was cold, sharp, the kind that bites your lungs when you breathe too hard. The train yard was deserted, filled with rusted boxcars and silence that felt alive. I walked in wearing a wire, the USB drive with the fake Project Halo data tucked in my pocket. My pulse thudded with every step. Then, from the shadows, she appeared. Margaret Hale. She looked nothing like the monster I'd imagined, elegant, calm, her silver hair tied neatly, her voice low and deliberate. "You look just like your father," she said softly. "He was brilliant. Too brilliant for his own good." My hands clenched. "You killed him, didn't you?" She tilted her head slightly. "Heart attack, wasn't it? Or that's what you were told." A cold wave rippled through me. "What did you do?" "Your father didn't want to sell his research," she said. "He wanted it to belong to the people." "That doesn't make money, dear." "But Ethan, he understood business." "Pity he fell in love." I wanted to scream, but all I could manage was a whisper. "You used him. You used all of us." Her smile didn't fade. "And I'll do it again unless you give me what I want." I pulled out the drive and tossed it toward her feet. "There. Project Halo. Everything you're after." She bent down slowly, picking it up. Smart girl. The second she plugged it into her tablet, the screen flickered, and then the device emitted a soft beep. Ramirez's voice came through her earpiece. "Game over, Margaret." Her eyes widened. "What?" Before she could finish, black SUVs surrounded the yard. Floodlights flashed on. Agents poured out, weapons raised. She tried to run, but Ramirez himself stepped forward, blocking her path. "It's over," he said flatly. She glared at me, fury twisting her elegant face. "You think this ends with me? There are more. You have no idea how deep this goes." As they handcuffed her and led her away, she turned one last time, her eyes burning into mine. Your father's legacy will bury you too, Ava. Her words stayed with me long after she was gone. By morning, the story was everywhere. Federal crackdown on criminal syndicate linked to energy patents. Hale was facing life in prison. The remaining members of the Meridian Group were being hunted down. But the victory didn't feel like peace. It felt like survival. That night, I stood outside the safe house, watching the sunrise. Claire joined me quietly. "It's over, isn't it?" she asked. I hesitated. "I want to believe it is." She smiled faintly. "Ethan would have wanted you to move on." I looked at her. "You think he deserved forgiveness?" She sighed. "I think he already found his." I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I could forgive. Not yet. But for the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. I thought the story was ending there. Until, 3 days later, I received one final package. No return address. No name. Just a black envelope. Inside was a USB drive. And a note. Project Halo was never the only one. I must have read that note 20 times. Project Halo was never the only one. The words felt like a countdown, a warning that everything I'd just survived was only a chapter, not the end. The USB drive sat on the table like a ticking bomb. Claire hovered behind me, her hands nervously gripping her sleeves. "Don't plug it in," she said quietly. "It could be a virus, or worse." "I know," I replied. "But if someone sent this after everything we've been through, it means there's still something they want us to see." I called Ramirez. He arrived within the hour, laptop in hand, his expression grim. "You're sure it came anonymously?" "Courier dropped it off at the door," I said. "No signature. Just this note." He nodded slowly. "All right. We'll open it, but on a secure line." He plugged the drive into his encrypted device. The screen flickered, then loaded a folder named Horizon. Inside were dozens of documents, photos, and a single video file titled Prototype Footage, Confidential. Ramirez clicked play. The video opened with a timestamp, April 12, 2018, Halcyon Energy Research Facility. My father's facility. My breath caught in my throat. On screen, my father appeared, standing beside a younger man in a white lab coat. Behind them, large cylindrical tanks glowed faintly with blue light. "This is the second iteration of the Horizon core," my father said in the video. "If successful, it could power an entire city without fossil fuels." The other man nodded. "And if it fails?" My father smiled faintly. "Then we try again." But the timestamp changed suddenly 2 weeks later. The lab was wrecked. Equipment shattered, alarms blaring. My father was shouting at someone off-screen. "You weren't supposed to move the materials yet. It's unstable." Then came a sound, an explosion. The video cut out. For a long moment, no one said a word. Ramirez leaned forward, his face pale. "Ava, this changes everything." I swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" He looked up at me. "Project Halo wasn't the first. Project Horizon came before it, and it looks like your father's death wasn't a heart attack. It was sabotage." Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. *. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavy with realization. "So they killed him," I whispered. "And then they used Ethan to finish what he started." Ramirez nodded grimly. "And if this footage is real, then the Meridian Group wasn't just laundering money, they were weaponizing clean energy. This could destroy everything they touched." Claire spoke up, voice trembling. "But Hale's in prison. She can't be behind this anymore." Ramirez turned to her. "Maybe not her. But she wasn't lying when she said there were more." He opened another folder from the drive. Inside was a list of names, politicians, CEOs, military contractors, and next to each name, a code name. At the top of the list was one word, Sentinel. Claire frowned. "Who's Sentinel?" Ramirez hesitated. "According to this, he's the successor. The one taking Hale's place." I scanned the list again, then froze when I saw the last name. Ethan Mitchell. Marked as former asset, terminated. I felt my stomach twist. Terminated. As in? Ramirez nodded. As in eliminated. The realization hit me like a cold slap. Ethan hadn't been shot by accident that night in the warehouse. Hale's people had turned on him the moment he became a liability. The man who destroyed me had been destroyed by the same monster he served. But another thought burned through the shock. If the Meridian Group had a new leader, and they were still moving forward, then they didn't just want the research. They wanted the technology itself. That meant someone, somewhere, was continuing my father's work. I need to know who Sentinel is, I said. Ramirez shook his head. It's too dangerous, Ava. You've already done enough. I looked him dead in the eye. I've lost my father, my husband, and nearly my life because of these people. I'm not stopping now. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. All right. But you don't go alone. 2 days later, we followed the trail from the metadata attached to the files. It led us to a remote research compound in Nevada, officially listed as a renewable testing facility. When we arrived, security was tighter than anything I'd ever seen. We couldn't just walk in. So Ramirez arranged for a covert operation, using his contacts in the bureau. We went in at night. The air smelled of desert dust and ozone. Inside the compound, massive generators hummed like sleeping beasts. And then, through a glass wall, I saw something that froze me in place. A new reactor, glowing the same faint blue as in my father's footage. Project Horizon wasn't dead. It was reborn. At the control panel stood a man, tall, gray suit, speaking into an earpiece. When he turned, I felt the air leave my lungs. I knew that face. Sentinel wasn't some faceless executive. It was Ramirez. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. My voice caught in my throat. Ramirez. He turned slowly, his calm smile returning, but this time, it looked wrong. Cold. You really thought I was here to protect you? My blood ran cold. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I didn't lie about Hale. She was reckless. But your father's work? That was genius. And now it's mine to finish. I backed away. You killed him. He shrugged. Let's just say I gave the world a reason to move forward. Then he looked past me, at the flashing red lights of the reactor. Your father wanted peace. I'm offering power. Before I could react, alarms blared through the facility. Claire's voice crackled through my earpiece. Ava, get out now. He's locking down the building. Ramirez smiled faintly. Too late. Steel shutters slammed shut around us. The hum of the reactor grew louder, unstable, angry. I realized in horror what he'd done. The Horizon core wasn't just active, it was overloading. Ramirez took a step back toward the control panel. If I can't control it, he said softly, no one will. And then the entire room began to shake. The ground trembled under my feet as alarms blared and red warning lights flashed like heartbeat pulses. The sound was deafening, a mechanical scream echoing through the steel walls. Core breach detected, a robotic voice announced over the intercom. Evacuate immediately. Ramirez, or rather, Sentinel, stood at the center of the chaos, his calm composure replaced by obsession. His eyes gleamed with that same power-hungry madness I'd seen in Ethan, only deeper, colder. You don't understand, Ava, he shouted over the sirens. Your father's work could change the world. He was willing to die for it. So am I. I took a step forward, shouting back, he didn't want control, he wanted freedom. You twisted everything he stood for. He slammed his hand against the control console, sparks flying. Freedom means nothing without power. The air grew hotter. The blue light from the reactor pulsed violently, each surge brighter than the last. I could feel static electricity prickling across my skin. I had seconds to decide. Run, or stop him. I chose both. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Eve for more shocking stories of betrayal and revenge. Asterisk. I lunged toward the nearest console, scanning the controls. My father had taught me enough about his systems years ago. Always leave a failsafe, he used to say. There had to be one here. Behind me, Ramirez was typing furiously, overriding the security locks. The entire room shook as pipes burst along the walls, hissing steam. Claire's voice crackled in my earpiece. Ava, talk to me. You have less than 4 minutes before detonation. I know. I yelled. Tell me how to shut this thing down. I'm patching into the feed. Give me 10 seconds. But 10 seconds felt like an eternity. Ramirez turned toward me, pulling a gun from his jacket. His voice was eerily calm again. "Step away from the console, Ava. You're not built for this world. Your father wasn't either." I froze, not because of the gun, but because of the pain behind his words. For the first time, I saw it. He wasn't just a monster. He was a believer. A man who thought he was saving the world, even as he destroyed it. Then Claire's voice broke through. "Red lever. Under the main console. Pull it now." Ramirez's eyes widened. "Don't you?" I dove for it. The gun went off, the sound splitting through the alarms. Pain seared across my arm, but I didn't stop. I yanked the lever down with all my strength. The reactor let out a high-pitched wail, the blue light dimming to white. The room flooded with blinding brightness, then silence. When I opened my eyes, smoke filled the air. The reactor was offline. Ramirez lay a few feet away, pinned under a collapsed beam, blood pooling beneath him. The gun had fallen from his hand. He looked at me, not angry, not even afraid, just tired. "I could have changed everything," he whispered. I knelt beside him, my injured arm throbbing. "You already did. You showed me what happens when people think power is the same thing as progress." He tried to speak again, but the words never came. His eyes glazed over, fixed on the reactor that would never run again. By the time the FBI arrived, it was over. The facility was in ruins, the Horizon core permanently disabled. Claire found me sitting outside in the desert sand, staring at the sunrise bleeding through the smoke. "It's done," she said softly. I nodded. "It's over." But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the quiet after a storm, the kind that leaves you wondering what parts of yourself survived. Weeks passed. The government sealed the Horizon files. Publicly, it was labeled an industrial accident. The Meridian Group was dismantled once and for all. And I disappeared again. I moved to a small coastal town, started using my mother's maiden name. No interviews. No spotlight. Just peace, or the closest thing to it. Sometimes, when I walk along the beach at night, I think about all of them: Ethan, Hale, Ramirez, even my father. They all chased power in different ways. But power doesn't fill the emptiness it creates. It took losing everything to understand that. One evening, as I was locking up my small art studio, a little girl wandered in, holding her mother's hand. She pointed at one of my paintings, a swirl of blue and gold light, and said, "It looks like something alive." I smiled faintly. It was, once. Her mother asked, "What's it called?" I looked at the canvas, then at the horizon through the window. "Hope," I said. And for the first time in years, I meant it. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share, and don't forget to subscribe.